There's a quiet strength that women recognize almost immediately, often without even knowing why. It isn't loud, it doesn't need to dominate a room. It doesn't come from muscles, money, or the ability to manipulate emotions. It's something more foundational, something ancient, even spiritual. It's the art of emotional composure. And while many men chase charisma or charm, the man who masters this internal steadiness holds a power that most can't see but all can feel. Emotional composure is the ability to remain grounded when life, or love, tries to throw you off center. It's not about pretending you don't feel. It's not about hiding vulnerability. In fact, it's the opposite. It's the ability to feel everything without being controlled by anything. When a man can sit with his own anger, disappointment, or insecurity without needing to lash out or retreat, he communicates a powerful message to a woman. You are safe here. I'm not going to lose myself in chaos. And this is where it gets psychological. Women are biologically wired to seek safety in their romantic attachments. Not just physical safety, but emotional security. Inconsistency, volatility, emotional impulsiveness, these things create distance, even if they're unintentional. But composure, that communicates self-mastery. It says, I can hold myself, I can hold space for you too. That is incredibly attractive, not in a superficial way, but in a deep, soul-level kind of way. You see, emotional composure doesn't mean coldness. It means containment. It's the man who can listen while being criticized without immediately getting defensive. It's the man who can face rejection without needing to blame. It's the man who feels pain but chooses his response with intention rather than reactivity. And that choice, that pause between trigger and reaction, that's the birthplace of masculine power. Philosophically, this is the man who refuses to be a slave to his emotions, not because he's suppressing them, but because he has made peace with them. He doesn't avoid storms. He stands inside them without being shaken. And that's what creates emotional polarity. Because when the feminine storms, when emotion floods a space, as it naturally will, she unconsciously searches for someone who won't collapse, someone who can witness her without trying to fix her, someone who can hold his center without making her wrong for losing hers. This is why women silently long for the man who embodies this art. He becomes a kind of lighthouse, not always noticed at first, but unforgettable once experienced. He doesn't promise that storms won't come. He promises that when they do, he won't disappear. So the real question is, can you hold your ground when it's not easy to? Can you be the calm in the chaos, not because you're trying to look strong, but because you've done the inner work to actually be strong? Mastering emotional composure isn't about winning her over. It's about becoming the kind of man you can respect when no one else is watching. And that, in the end, is the kind of man she'll never want to walk away from. There's a kind of silence in most relationships that no one talks about. Not the absence of words, but the absence of listening. You can be in a room with someone having a full conversation and yet feel completely unheard. And for women, this is one of the most invisible forms of disconnection. Because the truth is, a woman doesn't truly open herself to a man who talks the most. She opens herself to the man who listens the deepest. Deep listening isn't passive. It's not just nodding while waiting for your turn to speak. It's an act of presence. A man who masters the art of deep listening becomes a man women don't want to let go of. Not because of what he gives, but because of what he allows them to feel. Understood. Psychologically, listening touches one of a woman's core needs in connection. Emotional validation. When she speaks and feels genuinely heard, not judged, not redirected, not fixed, she experiences a rare sense of being seen for who she really is. That kind of recognition is powerful. It creates emotional intimacy without needing to force anything. In fact, the man who listens deeply doesn't have to say much at all, because his silence isn't empty, it's present. This is where most men miss the mark. They think they need to impress her, to show how much they know or how quickly they can solve her problems. But she's not looking for a fixer. She's looking for someone who can hold her thoughts without trying to control them. Deep listening requires patience, emotional maturity, and a strong sense of self. Not to jump in, not to defend, not to fix, just to witness. And here's the deeper layer. When a woman is deeply listened to, she connects not just with the man in front of her, but with a part of herself she often suppresses. She accesses her emotions more fully, her thoughts flow more clearly, and her body feels more relaxed. In that moment, she associates that sense of safety and clarity with the man who made it possible. That's where real emotional bonds begin. Not in grand gestures, but in the quiet presence of a man who listens with his whole being. Philosophically, this is about ego. Most people listen to reply. But the man who listens to understand is rare because he has tamed his need to be the center. He has learned that influence doesn't come from dominating the room, but from owning the silence. And in that silence, he creates space for trust to grow. So ask yourself this: when she speaks, are you truly listening, or are you just waiting to speak? Because if you're not listening with presence, you're not really listening at all. Master this one art, deep, conscious listening, and you won't have to wonder why she feels drawn to you. She'll feel it in her nervous system, in her breath, in the way she softens around you. And in that space, trust is born, not through effort, but through presence. There's a certain kind of energy that enters the room before a man even speaks. It's not always about his appearance, his money, or his charm. It's about something more elemental. It's the way he moves, the clarity behind his decisions, the grounded rhythm of his life. That energy is purpose. And when a man leads with purpose, he becomes almost gravitational. Not because he's forcing attention, but because he no longer needs it. He becomes self-led. Purpose isn't always flashy. It doesn't have to mean building a business empire or traveling the world. Purpose is internal. It's the quiet knowing of who you are and where you're going. It's direction without distraction. Women don't just want a man who knows what he wants. They want a man who's already in motion, a man who leads himself. Because when a man leads himself with focus and direction, she feels safer surrendering to the flow of the relationship. Why? Because his steadiness creates emotional anchoring. Let's be clear, this has nothing to do with dominance and everything to do with intention. A purposeful man doesn't chase validation. He doesn't jump from one goal to another based on who's watching. He operates from a deep internal compass. That's rare, and in a world where so many men are unsure of themselves, a man with unwavering intention stands out, not just to women, but to life itself. Psychologically, this taps into something primal. Women are biologically and emotionally wired to seek alignment with stability. Purpose signals stability, not perfection, but direction. A man on purpose is less reactive, less needy, and more emotionally consistent. That consistency makes him trustworthy, and in today's age of hyper-fragmented attention and constant distraction, a focused man is magnetic. Now here's where it gets deeper. Purpose isn't just about goals, it's about identity. When a man knows who he is, what he values, and where he refuses to compromise, he radiates something unshakable. Even in conflict, even in heartbreak, he holds his line, not stubbornly, but with clarity. And that inner clarity is something a woman can emotionally lean into. It doesn't mean he controls her. It means he knows how to lead himself, and in doing so, creates room for deeper connection.
Purpose also eliminates performance. When you're rooted in purpose, you stop needing to impress. You stop bending to expectations. You move from internal truth, not external applause. And that quiet strength, again, that emotional composure paired with deep listening, becomes the trifecta of masculine attraction. It's not that you're trying to win her over, it's that you're becoming the kind of man who doesn't need to chase what he naturally attracts. So the question becomes, what are you building your life around? What's guiding your choices? Because a man without direction becomes a man easily swayed by people, emotions, or temporary desires. But a man led by purpose, he becomes the kind of man a woman doesn't just admire, she feels drawn to, safe with, and inspired by. Master the art of leading yourself with purpose, and you won't just win her attention, you'll earn her respect. And that's the foundation of a connection that actually lasts. There's something deeply attractive almost addictive about a man who understands emotional boundaries. Not walls, not avoidance, but true boundaries. The quiet strength to say, this is who I am, this is what I allow, and this is what I will not tolerate. It's not about being rigid or controlling, it's about being rooted. And when a woman senses that you live with this kind of clarity, she doesn't just feel drawn to you, she respects you, often without even fully understanding why. Boundaries aren't just about others, they are a reflection of how well you know yourself. They say, I have done the work. I know what disrupts my peace, and I know what nourishes it. Most people, if we're honest, are afraid to set boundaries because they're afraid to lose people. But here's the paradox. The more you fear losing someone, the more likely you are to lose yourself. And a man who sacrifices himself for approval becomes emotionally invisible. He fades into the background of her life, no matter how present he tries to be. Women don't fall in love with men who are always available in the name of people pleasing. They fall for men who are available with intention. When you have strong emotional boundaries, you don't say yes because you're scared to say no. You say yes because it aligns with your values. That's attractive because it's real. It communicates confidence, not performance. Psychologically, boundaries are a marker of emotional intelligence. They show that a man understands where he ends and someone else begins. He doesn't try to fix, save, or control. He holds space, but he doesn't carry weight that isn't his. This emotional sovereignty is what actually creates connection. It's counterintuitive, but the more whole you are on your own, the more deeply someone else can connect with you. Why? Because you're not coming from lack. You're not asking them to complete you. You're inviting them to meet you. And let's not forget the philosophical weight of this. Boundaries are not rejection. They are protection, not just of your energy, but of your identity. In a world that constantly pulls you in 1,000 directions, a man who knows how to stand firm becomes a mirror of stability. And that stability, it allows the feminine to soften. It creates safety, not by domination, but by presence. So when she pushes, tests, or even tries to cross lines, consciously or unconsciously, she's not looking for control. She's looking for clarity. And if you crumble, she loses trust. But if you calmly hold your line, not with anger, but with certainty, you become someone she can lean into without fear of being consumed. Emotional boundaries aren't a barrier to love. They're the container that allows love to grow. Without them, everything spills, blurs, and eventually breaks. But with them, you don't just protect yourself, you elevate the relationship. Be the man who knows his limits, honors his values, and stands firm in his emotional truth. Because a woman can only fully trust a man who refuses to lose himself in the process of loving her. There's a profound difference between a man who talks about his values and a man who embodies them. And women, especially women with depth and self-awareness, can feel the gap between the two almost instantly. Words may capture attention, but it's integrity that captures respect. And ultimately, it's that respect that lays the foundation for emotional desire, deep trust, and lasting connection. When a man consistently acts in alignment with what he says he believes in, he sends a very clear psychological signal. I am safe. I am accountable. I am not swayed by impulse or pressure. That kind of integrity isn't just moral, it's magnetic. Because in a world full of shifting opinions, blurred boundaries, and people who say one thing and do another, a man who is grounded in his principles becomes a rarity. And it's in that rarity that women recognize leadership. Here's the thing. Integrity doesn't mean perfection. It means consistency. It's showing up even when it's uncomfortable. It's telling the truth when lying would be easier. It's following through on promises, even the small ones. These aren't dramatic acts, but they leave a deep impression. Why? because they reveal character. And character, far more than charm or confidence, is what makes a woman feel like she can build something with you, not just experience something fleeting. Psychologically, integrity triggers something called emotional predictability. When you're a man of your word, she doesn't have to guess who you'll be tomorrow. That doesn't mean you're rigid, it means you're trustworthy. And trust is the soil in which intimacy grows. When a woman trusts you, not just with her words, but with her emotions, her vulnerability, and her energy, she begins to open up in ways that aren't forced, they're natural. She's not performing, and neither are you. What's even more powerful is that integrity is deeply felt. It's not just what you say, but how you carry yourself. Do you keep your commitments? Do you show up when it matters? Do you admit when you're wrong and take steps to do better? All of these subtle actions communicate your inner world. And women are incredibly attuned to those signals because at their core, they're asking, can I trust him with me? And let's take this a step deeper. Physically, integrity is about wholeness. It means being the same man in private that you are in public. When your words and actions match, you become integrated, not fragmented. You're not wearing masks. And that emotional congruence creates a powerful sense of presence. You're not just there, you're real. And that realness is what invites authentic love. So the takeaway is simple but challenging. Don't just speak values, live them. Be the kind of man who doesn't need to remind people of what he stands for because his life already speaks it clearly. When you master integrity, you don't have to convince a woman to trust you. She'll feel it in her bones. And in a world of contradictions, that kind of congruence is not only rare, it's irresistible. When a man learns to hold space for a woman's emotions without needing to control, fix, or shrink them, he taps into a level of emotional mastery that most men never reach. And yet, this one art, this ability to be a steady presence in the face of emotional storms, is exactly what women silently long for. Not because they want to be difficult, not because they're emotional burdens, but because they're searching, often unconsciously, for a man whose strength isn't reactive, whose power lies not in domination, but in grounded presence. To hold space is to allow what is, to witness without judgment, to listen without defensiveness, and to stay present without trying to escape. It sounds simple, but it's not easy, especially in relationships where emotions run deep and egos are easily triggered. Many men, when faced with emotional intensity, either shut down or try to shut her down, but both responses send the same message. I can't handle your night. And once a woman senses that a quiet distance begins to form, typologically, what she's seeking isn't control, it's containment. She wants to know that her emotions, whether soft, messy, or volatile, won't scare you away or cause you to retaliate. Because if she feels unsafe emotionally, she will withdraw sexually, spiritually, and relationally. That's not punishment, it's protection. Women don't open to a man they can't trust with their emotional world. And that trust doesn't come from words. It comes from how you respond when things get hard, raw, or real. This doesn't mean tolerating abuse or disrespect. It means having the emotional strength to stay calm and clear when she's processing her inner world. It means asking what's underneath this instead of reacting to the surface. It means learning the language of empathy, understanding that sometimes what she needs isn't a solution, but a witness. And here's what's profound. When a woman feels truly seen, truly heard, without being judged or fixed, she begins to soften. Her guard lowers. Her energy shifts. She feels safe. Not because you agreed with her, but because you didn't flinch. You didn't run. You didn't try to override her feelings with logic. You stayed, you listened, you held space. Philosophically, this is the art of masculine presence. It is not loud. It is not performative. It is still. It is attentive. It is deeply attuned, and it communicates one powerful message: I see you, and I'm not afraid of your depth. That is the kind of energy that doesn't just attract a woman, it keeps her emotionally anchored. So, if you want to be the man she remembers, the man she respects, the man she feels, master the art of holding space, not with words, but with your energy. Because when a woman realizes she can unravel and still be held with love, not control, something in her shifts forever. Emotional presence doesn't demand attention, it commands trust. And trust is the doorway to everything she longs to give.